It begins with a whisper through static, a faint Morse pulse over the polar night, a message half heard, half erased by ice and wind. Somewhere beyond the North Cape, a fleet once moved through black seas and freezing storms, carrying men and machines bound for a war none of them would see end. In the archives of the Second World War, its name has been censored, redacted, buried beneath layers of frost and ink. But sailors called it something else: the Ghost Convoy. A formation that sailed into the Arctic darkness in 1942 and never came back. This is its classified file, recently declassified from Allied naval records, and for decades the subject of rumor among surviving convoy men. A fleet lost not to the enemy alone, but to the brutal mathematics of ice, war, and secrecy. What follows is not a legend, but the cold reconstruction of a true disappearance. In the long winter of 1942, World War II had already spread to the ends of the earth. The Soviet Union was fighting for survival, its cities besieged by German forces. The Western Allies, Britain, Canada, and the United States, had opened a lifeline through the Arctic Ocean. Convoys carried tanks, trucks, aircraft, and ammunition from Scotland and Iceland to Murmansk and Arkhangelsk, braving submarines, bombers, and temperatures below 40 degrees. The route was vital and deadly. By the time the secret convoy sailed, 153 merchant ships had already been sunk on the Arctic run. Churchill himself called it the worst journey in the world. Yet still they came, merchantmen flanked by destroyers, corvettes, and minesweepers threading through the polar fog. Their decks coated in frozen spray, their hulls painted white against the ice. This particular convoy, designated Operation FB, was unusual from the start. As official papers note, records incomplete, operation executed under extreme secrecy. It was not part of the main PQ or QP series of convoys that linked Britain and Russia. It was a special reinforcement hastily assembled in October 1942, when regular Arctic sailings had been suspended due to catastrophic losses. In the first visual frame, we see those ships, Liberty freighters, British tramps, Norwegian tankers, scattered across the North Atlantic, forming ranks under pale northern light. Every man aboard carried sealed orders. Their cargo manifests were stripped of detail. Their radio call signs were changed daily. To German intelligence, the convoy did not exist. To Allied command, it barely did either. Destroyers cut through the ice-spiked waves, the sound of diesel engines muffled under wind and static. The Arctic convoys sailed at the edge of endurance, hulls reinforced with ice sheathing, anti-freeze sprayed over guns, men wrapped in layers of oilskins. But nothing could truly protect them from what waited beyond Bear Island. In the third minute, we dropped beneath the surface, a periscope's cold lens rising through snow-mottled seas. The Kriegsmarine's U-boats were there first. By 1942, Admiral Donitz's wolf packs hunted convoys across the North Atlantic with precise coordination. Each submarine was assigned a patrol grid, reporting movements by encrypted Enigma signals. The Arctic route, however, was less predictable, plagued by storms that scattered ships beyond the reach of both friend and foe. From the German Naval Command Center in Paris and later Trondheim, orders were issued to intercept what intelligence hinted might be a new Allied movement toward the Barents Sea. B. Dienst, the German Naval Signals Unit, had broken parts of British Naval Cipher No. 3. They couldn't see the whole picture, but they saw enough to mobilize. In the fourth minute, inside that command bunker, the walls glow red under dim lights. Officers trace the map northward, plotting grids near Jan Mayen, Spitsbergen, and the Barents. The U-boat pens open their steel doors. The northern hunt begins. Then, the storm. By the fifth minute, the sea itself turns hostile. Arctic tempests didn't merely break masts, They erased fleets. Winds at 100 knots, waves higher than houses, temperatures collapsing to -40. Ice coated the ships faster than men could chip it away. Gun turrets froze solid, lifeboats locked under crusts of frozen seawater. Logbooks describe snow horizontal, visibility nil, ships vanishing into fog as if absorbed by the night. Somewhere in that chaos, the convoy fractured. Destroyers lost visual contact with their charges. Radio silence was still enforced. To transmit was to die. The result, ships sailing blind, each believing itself alone in an ocean of ice. By the 6th minute, the enemy moved in. A U-boat, perhaps U-354 or U-456, sighted smoke and began pursuit. Torpedoes under the ice, phosphorescent trails flickering like ghosts beneath the surface. The convoy fought back, depth charges rolling off sterns, echoing through the freezing depths. But in those conditions, even sound betrayed you. Hydrophones failed. Compass needles froze. The first Allied merchantman to die was the Empire Shackleton, hit midships and broken in two. Survivors later recalled clinging to debris, faces turning black with frostbite within minutes. Rescue was almost impossible. The destroyer Onslow attempted to turn, but heavy seas forced her back. The logs mention, no sight of survivors, ship lost with all hands. By the 7th minute, sailors were fighting two wars, against the Germans and against the cold. Decks turned into ice fields, ropes froze into iron bars. Men had to smash machine gun belts apart with hammers just to reload. One petty officer recorded in his diary, later found in Admiralty archives, "We breathe ice. Every exhale freezes to our masks." In the 8th minute, the radio operators come into focus, tapping Morse in cramped cabins, gloves off so they can feel the key. Many of those messages never reached command. Ionospheric interference in polar regions distorted signals. Bursts of aurora static made channels useless. The result was a perfect blackout. London heard nothing. Murmansk heard nothing. Only the Germans, with their intercepts and triangulation, listened in the dark. A sudden torpedo flash illuminates the 9th minute. Arctic water erupts in fire, an impossible sight, flame on ice. Another ship gone, another echo fading into the white silence. By the 10th minute, German heavy units joined the hunt. The Admiral Hipper and Lützow, operating out of Altafjord, were dispatched northward. Hitler's Fleet Order 56 authorized them to attack any Allied formation found near the Barents. But bad weather and radio confusion left them chasing ghosts. Some historians now believe they found debris from Operation FB and assumed it was the wreckage of a larger convoy. Others think they were deliberately misled by British countersignals, a phantom fleet created by deception units in Scotland to divert the Germans away from the real path. Still, not all the ships of the Ghost Convoy were lost in battle. Many simply froze, engines dead, drifting until the ice claimed them. Minute 11. Lifeboats drift across an empty horizon. Men huddled together, beards glazed with ice, whispering prayers they could barely form. Hypothermia in those waters took 6 minutes to kill. Yet a few survived, picked up weeks later by Soviet trawlers or neutral Norwegians. Their stories contradicted one another. Some claimed they'd seen aircraft circling, German reconnaissance, others said Allied. Some believed they'd been abandoned deliberately, a sacrifice to mislead the enemy. In the 12th minute, back in London, the Admiralty map room glows under green-shaded lamps. Intelligence officers pin colored flags across the Arctic. The convoy is listed as presumed scattered. No official loss summary was released. Files marked Restricted Arctic Operations, October 1942, remained sealed until 1983. What those papers revealed shocked historians. The convoy, 14 merchantmen and 3 escorts, had been ordered to sail individually, not as a group. The intention was deception. a scatter formation to confuse enemy direction finding. Each ship would proceed independently to Murmansk using silence and camouflage. It was, in effect, a ghost convoy by design. But isolation was death in those waters. Only a handful made it. Minute 13 brings us to Murmansk, the Soviet port battered by bombers yet still functioning. The harbor, lit only by fires and aurora, received the survivors. Soviet harbor logs show 4 ships arriving over 3 weeks, each alone, each nearly frozen solid. Their crews delirious, some half blind from exposure. They brought supplies, tanks, trucks, shells, but also stories of horror. By minute 14, the war's tides shift. German U-boats, once hunters, become hunted. Enigma's code books fall into Allied hands. In 1945, U-boat crews surrender under Arctic skies, laying down arms at Narvik, Kirkenes, and Hammerfest. Among them, veterans of the convoy attacks. Their interrogation files, declassified decades later, reveal they remembered the Ghost Convoy too. One commander, U-354's Kapitänleutnant Karl-Heinz Herbschleb, said simply, "They were like shadows. We fired at mist." By the 15th minute, the war is ending, but the Arctic keeps its secrets. Snow covers what remains of the wrecks. Some are still there, half buried near Svalbard and Novaya Zemlya, sonar echoes under the ice. British divers in the 1990s found remnants. Twisted steel, a Liberty ship's bell marked FB8. The ocean had preserved their final silence. The 16th minute opens on Arctic dawn, a pale sun breaking through mist over a line of gray hulls. New convoys sail again, this time escorted by radar-equipped destroyers. Technology had caught up with survival. Chain-home radar, Type 271 sets, and HFDF direction finding changed the Arctic War. German U-boats lost their invisibility. The North Sea turned into a battlefield of signals. Minute 17. Inside Allied listening stations from Iceland to Bletchley Park, operators monitor coded intercepts. The air is thick with Morse chatter. German grids, convoy reports, weather codes. The Arctic run becomes not just a physical route, but an invisible war of data. The intelligence battles that saved later convoys PQ-18 and JW-55 began with lessons learned from the Ghost Convoy's silence. In the 18th minute, the guns thunder again. Naval battles flare in the Barents, the Battle of the North Cape, December 1943. The German battleship Scharnhorst falls, sunk by HMS Duke of York. The victory avenges the losses of 1942 and secures the Arctic lanes until the war's end. But the cost in men and metal remains beyond measure. Minute 19. The smoke clears. The sea is calm again, frozen under the midnight sun. Memorials rise in Murmansk, Reykjavik, and Portsmouth for the sailors of the Arctic convoys. Many names are missing because many ships were never officially acknowledged. The Ghost Convoy remains listed as lost due to enemy action and severe weather. Yet among veterans it became legend. A mission erased from maps but etched into memory. The 20th minute, the final image, shows a frozen memorial stone, frost creeping across carved names. Beneath it a plaque reads, "For those who sailed the Arctic route and did not return." The full reconstruction pieced together from Admiralty files ADM 199-113, Soviet archives and survivor testimony reveals a truth colder than the Arctic itself. Operation FB was real. It was designed to vanish. Its disappearance was part strategy, part catastrophe. A calculated risk in a war where logistics meant survival. It tells us something profound about World War II. That victory was not only forged in battles like Stalingrad or El Alamein, but also in invisible operations lost to the sea. Convoys like these were arteries of resistance, feeding the Eastern Front with supplies that would keep the Red Army fighting. Without them, the Soviet lines might have collapsed, and history might have frozen differently. The Ghost Convoy remains a monument to the limits of human endurance. Its men faced an environment that erased every trace of their passage. Ice closing over hulls, wind scouring their wakes, time sealing the evidence. When researchers revisited the logs, they found blank pages, ink washed away by humidity, radio transcripts half missing. Even in the digital age, the Arctic still guards them. In the quiet aftermath of war, a few survivors met again in London's Naval Club. They drank in silence, men from merchant and navy alike. One was asked what he remembered most. He answered, "The sound of the wind through frozen rigging, like voices." Perhaps that is why the convoy is called the Ghost Convoy. Not because it was mythical, but because every attempt to describe it becomes an act of resurrection, bringing back the dead through memory, word, and record. Today, the Arctic convoys are recognized with medals and memorials. Russia still honors them annually at Murmansk, the port of glory. But Operation FB, the vanished convoy, remains an entry in redacted files, its coordinates struck through, its ships unnamed. And yet, when the ice shifts north of Bear Island, sonar sometimes catches the echo of steel, the faint shape of a freighter upright, preserved in cold silence. The Arctic, it seems, never truly lets go. This was the secret Arctic Ghost Convoy that vanished in WWII, a story once buried beneath classified ink, now unsealed from the frost of history. Their voyage ended in darkness, but their legacy endures, frozen in the archives of a world that almost forgot them. The war they fought, the Second World War, stretched across continents, yet in the Arctic, it met its quietest battlefield. Between the wind, the ice, and the code of silence, a convoy disappeared and became immortal.